thank you so much, Ken, and your colleagues for the opportunity to serve you guys today. So we are going to be talking about grants. And before we get into that, let me share a little bit about myself. So, well, these are the objectives. I'll follow the script. The objectives today that I'm hoping by the time we leave this space, you would have known what a grant is. You would have known what is the process for getting a grant, and then how to apply for a grant. And within that, you have been able to identify what are the elements of a grant application, and then I'll speak a little bit about grant writing as a career path. But before I go into that, I would like to share a little bit about who I am. So I am, as Ken said, I'm Teresa Dangwa. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I have lived in the United States for 25 plus years now. Before coming to the US, I was in United Kingdom, where I lived for about 10 years, and my son was actually born in London. This moment is an accumulation of 25 plus years of experience in the nonprofit world, in leadership and management, and also in grant writing and grant management for nonprofit organizations within the nonprofit organization sector, as well as managing grants and applying for grants within state government, as well as federal governments as well. I mean, federal grants and funding opportunities. I've worked in nonprofits. I worked for the state. I've worked in hospitals. My last job was as a hospital. Was a hospital administrator for a while, and then I went into project management for another hospital, and then I started my own consulting company, which is what I am now doing. But before I speak about my consulting company, I also have two nonprofit organizations. One that I started in 2008, which is the Dangwa Initiative, which is based in Zimbabwe, which its main purpose when it was created was to serve AIDS orphans and widows. We're still doing that. Serving them a little bit differently. When we first started, it was about paying school fees, providing their basic needs, and really concentrating on education, providing uniforms, school supplies, etc. And then now it has morphed into something else. With God giving me grace, I may talk more about that. But for now, the other organization, I just started it last year. This is to serve and empower women, specifically immigrant women.
Why?
Sorry about that, Pastor. If everybody could mute,
Okay.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Are you ready?
Who that is. Please.
Immigrant women.
Go ahead.
And serving immigrant women from anywhere in the world, wherever they are in the world. If they are an immigrant and we have the service that they are looking for, we will help. We will help them. This is born out of me being an immigrant and being a survivor of human trafficking, and recognizing that when people come into another nation, they don't always have the knowledge of how that nation operates. And because sometimes not having that knowledge puts them in vulnerable state, and they end up in abusive relationships, whether romantic relationship or employee related relationships, or just in general, they get abused, and some end up in human trafficking. trafficking situations. So this organization is to help first to bring awareness to people that your neighbor next door might actually be in a human trafficking situation and you just don't know. And also to provide tangible services for them, to empower them, to help them get out of these abusive situations. Dango Consulting was also built out of the experience that I had and the knowledge of knowing that there are a lot of nonprofit organizations or individuals who want to start nonprofits but don't know how. And then there are some who have started nonprofits but don't know then what next. Now I've submitted my paperwork, I've registered my organization, then what? We all know nonprofits operate on funds just like any other business. So it was the desire to mix between the two, the vision of the person that started the nonprofit or the person who has a project, and trying to help them find the resources that they need. So my specialty is in nonprofit formation, in grant research, grant writing, board development, and as well in other back-end processes. I am a certified coach in different areas. I also have been a CDC consultant, particularly on Africa regarding HIV and AIDS, and project management as well is part of what I have done. And then from a formal perspective, formal education, I have a Bachelor of Science in Information Management out of the United Kingdom. I also have a Bachelor of Science from Human Services in Springfield, Massachusetts, right here in the United States. I'm a graduate for Nonprofit Management and Leadership at U Albany, right here in New York. And then I just also have a certificate in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the workplace from the University of Florida. Now that's out of the way. What is a grant? I like participation, so please let's have some participation in the chat room. If you are able, let's do that. So what do you think a grant is? Let me hear it from you guys. What is a grant? You can either speak it up or you can type it in the chat.
So Pastor, for me, a grant is usually an organization, a foundation, or something like that that has provided money for a particular cause and will give it to an organization that will support that cause.
Yes, yes. Shadrach, what is a grant?
A grant is an amount of money given to an organization on a non-repayable basis to support the purposes of that non-profit organization in being able to empower people in areas of interest to them around the world or in their specific area.
Yes, yes. All those great answers and on point, absolutely. And Nima is saying it's a donation of funds to an organization. And then Quinder Adams says it's free money provided to an organization. Well, yes and no, it is not free money. And we'll talk more about that. And then Dr. Aderonke says a grant is a form of fund for an area of interest and research. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for participating. So a grant, as you stated, is definitely okay. It is definitely money that does not need to be paid back. So I guess that's where the people get the free money from, that it does not need to get paid back. It is given to an individual or to an entity. There are funds, they tend to fund an idea or a project. They're also conditional. So it's not free. They are conditional, there are strings attached to this type of gifts. Pardon me. What a grant is not is free money. It is not free money. that does not have any obligation. It comes with an obligation. It is not for your backyard upgrades or for you to upgrade your car and buy something, take your family on vacation or whatever. It is generally not given for startup funds for nonprofit. Although lately I have been seeing other entities, new entities coming into the arena who are recognizing that sometimes a nonprofit, somebody has a really great idea that can definitely change the world, and they are now starting to provide startup funds for nonprofits. Rarely, but it's I've been seeing that trend going on in the grant writing, in the grant provision arena. There is an exception to the rule. The college or student grants that are given, sometimes if you don't go on with school, you have to keep that money back, right? So and then it speaks to it's not free money. There is something you need to give for you to get it. Now, just a quick glance from the United States government's perspective in relation to grants versus a loan. I often do this teaching for both nonprofit organizations and small businesses. Some of the principles are the same on how to apply for these grants, because the government also gives grants to small businesses. So you may see some of my slides speaking to small business small business companies, for-profit companies. Now, from a U.S. perspective, a grant, as far as the grant is money for projects that benefits the community, versus a loan, which is money for personal benefit or assistance. And then from the government's perspective, who is giving these grants? It is state and local governments, universities, research labs, or rather, who is receiving these grants? Sorry, universities, research labs, law enforcement, nonprofit organizations, and then on the loan side, the general public can apply for loans, such as people impacted by a recent disaster, students in need of financial assistance, and small business owners. What are some of the examples on both ends? On one spectrum is support for local schools, funding scientific research, and then on the other end, it's student financial aid, help with home repairs or disaster assistance. And on the grant side, it does not need to be repaid. And then on the flip side, the loan does need to be repaid, usually with interest, regardless of your outcome. The loan still needs to be paid. And I always want to mention here that I am not an advocate for nonprofit entities such as yourselves to get loans to start a nonprofit or to get loans to support a nonprofit. Because if that nonprofit doesn't succeed, if it does not take off as well as you thought you would, still the bank will come knocking. You will still need to pay that money to the bank. So try and there is enough money in the grant on the grant side that there really is no reason for anyone to take a loan from the bank to operate a nonprofit. So sources of funds come from, if you're a nonprofit, it's a small business administration. It can some grants can come from the government. Some grants come from foundation, from corporate, from other organizations, and people are free to apply for whichever one applies to them. And then within the grants itself, there are two types of grants within the nonprofit world. There are two types of grants. There are restrictive grants and unrestricted grants. So restricted grants are grants that you are given to do a specific project or assignment. And then unrestricted is money you are given but can be used in any area under your mission. Right. So, for example, if you are starting a small, if you are starting an after-school program, you apply for a grant, and that grant will determine and say, we only want this money to be used specifically for this project. Now, the project is within the nonprofit, which also has its own administrative costs and other employees that have nothing to do with the after school program. So this funding can say, this is, oh, sorry, I'm not speaking as fast as I should be, according to this, let me just pause here for a minute. So the project, the fund can be specifically to the project, even though the project is operating under a nonprofit. Any other expenses that a nonprofit might have, that a funder can restrict how much of their money can go towards administrative. But there are other funders who recognize that, yes, there are a lot of money that goes specifically to projects, but you can't run a project without the administrative costs. So there are some funders who are okay with you taking these unrestricted funds to distribute them to both program as well as to administrative costs. So different types of grants are, there are grants for project or program grants, like I mentioned. This is a fund or the cost of a specific activity that you are looking to do. Oh gosh, I don't know what is going on with my speed. There are operating grants, and these are for any costs, administrative costs such as salaries, advertising, office expenses, rent, etc. And then there are capacity building grants. So you want to build your organization, you want to expand your organization, you want to be more effective, so you can apply for a capacity building grant. Maybe you are looking to be more self-sustaining, so you can apply for such a grant. Matching grants are somebody gives a certain amount of money, and you do a fundraiser to match it. So a funder would say, we'll give you 5,000 as long as you can get someone through other funding opportunities to match it. And then there's capital grants. Perhaps you want to purchase a piece of land to build a building, to remodel, or even to buy some equipment. Capital grants are what they are for. Endowment grants, this is money that is received and is put away into an account. It is usually given or donated to an entity after somebody has passed away and they want to support the mission. So the organization will then put it away in some conservative investment, and then they only use the interest. Then there are what I talked about earlier, startup grants. Those are funds for starting your organization or a company. And so what is grant writing? Grant writing is a process. It's a process or practice of applying for funds, and it's completing a specific application following prescribed guidelines. Now let's talk about the actual process, how a grant comes to be. So you identify the need or the focus, where it is, what it is that you want to do with these funds that you're looking for. And then you find the prospective grant. You develop a general proposal and or budget. Sometimes that's where you end, and then you come to you skip over to preparing the specific proposal and then go on. But sometimes there are two steps that the instruction might ask you to do, which instructions are always in every grant has its specific instruction. They may ask you to first submit a letter of inquiry or a letter of interest. Basically, this is just a letter that's saying, I saw your advertisement for a grant. My organization is interested in it. We would like to be considered. This is what we're planning to do. And then you receive from the funder, you receive a request for formal application. This is when they will actually give you the actual application. They have bought into your idea, which you have stated in your letter, and now they want to move it forward. And then that's when you come into preparing the specific proposal. You submit this proposal before deadline. A lot of people don't realize that there is a lot that there is a lot that hinges on that deadline. Once you miss that deadline, you're out of the game. That's just basically it. There is no, let me call and please tell them that my computer died. I did not have data. If I had a funeral, they don't care. They want you to respect the deadline, and then the grantor reviews the proposal. Reviews the proposal and receives the award or letter, and you will receive the award or letter, and then you accept. You can accept it or decline it. Sometimes, yes, people do decline the award or the grant for whatever reason, and then if you have accepted it, you carry out your project, and then while you're carrying out your project, at some point your funder is going to want some reports. So you prepare those reports, and then you go back to do the cycle again. Now, there are 5 R's of grant writing. Okay, maybe 4. But I like to call them 5. I put them as 5, and you're going to see why in a minute. So there's readiness. When you are applying for a grant, when you are writing a grant, there is a readiness that is expected. There is research that needs to be done. There are relationships that you need to nurture, and then there's the writing. Here comes the 4th R. It's in the writing, and then reporting. Right, so these are the 5 things you need to pay. You know that you're going to need while you are writing any grant. It doesn't matter what grant you're writing. These 5 R's are involved at one stage or another. Now let's get deeper into the readiness. What does that mean? That means your organization's capacity. Your organization's capacity to be able to carry out this project that you are proposing. It measures your organization's capacity to meet the expectations, to research, to apply, to win, and even to manage the grant effectively. And then readiness, also speaking to winning those grants, is not always possible, but it's not easy. Are you ready for rejection? Some people are not very good at taking rejection, but you're going to, in the grant world, you're going to kiss a lot of toads before you get to the prince. So you apply for as many, but the odds of getting your grants are not always in our favor in the grant writing world. It's 10 to 20% of whatever you put in. So this means put in as many grants to give yourself a better chance and a higher chance to get those grants. And the grants by nature are episodic, right? So plan ahead, plan well. Don't apply for a grant today because you need to start your project next month. You may not get it. It rarely happens unless you are reaching out to a specific person and you know that specific individual, and they are the ones that are making the decision, and they are the ones that have invited you to apply, and you are guaranteed. Then that's a different story. But how many of us know funders who guarantee us that if we put in our application, we are going to win it? So seeking grants it should not be done it should not be done haphazardly. It should be planned very well, and you should always consistently just be applying for grants. That's why most organizations will end up having a specific grant writer in their community, in their entity, so that they are concentrating specifically on writing, on researching the grants and writing those grants. And then you need to also, before you get into applying for the grant, part of your readiness is to fully understand all elements of a grant proposal before you begin to write. I always encourage people who are writing grants to say, if you are going to write a grant, don't rush into starting to write it. Review it, right? Review it and read it and understand it and get into it before you start writing it. Is the best approach. Most people, they get in and then they run, and then you miss something. Always follow the instruction of the funder. And then while we are on readiness, there are two aspects. There is the administrative aspects, and then there's the programmatic aspect. So from the readiness, from the administrative aspect, most grants, if not 99.5% of them, are going to ask whether or not you are an incorporated entity. In other countries, it's a certification of incorporation. In Zimbabwe, they use PVO. In the US, it's 501c3. Whatever it is in your country, in the area where you are doing your project, are you a registered entity? It is very important. They want that alone shows the funder that you are legit. It brings gives them a little bit of confidence of we are working with a legit organization or entity. Having an invested and a diverse board of directors. A lot of people don't do much with directors, but your directors need to be invested in your mission. And also identify some key community stakeholders in your community that you collaborate with. Be established in the community with both formal and informal partnerships, because your organization is not going to be the be-all and all of your community. So you need other stakeholders, you need other partners to do different things. So you may not be the one who knows where to get the children you want to serve, but there is an after-school program down the street that are not offering the financial literacy, for example, for your organization. So it might behoove you to have some partnership with that after-school program entity. Have a clear and defined mission statement. Demonstrate organizational credibility and competency. And this can be done, we'll talk more about it, but just really quickly, it can be done by showing the resumes of your leadership, by showing the list of who your board of directors are, the diversity of your board of directors, what kind of skill set does your staff have, all those things speak to credibility and competency. And then have a process of measuring outcomes. How is your project or your organization impacting your community? Very, very important. And then from a programmatic perspective, your readiness is speaking to, do you have strong and sustained programs that are already operating, or that you've operated and you've closed out? Do you have a concise description of programs or services that includes goals and objectives, activities, and any other key outcomes, since if you have already implemented the program or service? Have strong organization capacity. Maintain reliable data demonstrating a specific need within the community that comes from the last 3 years. Have SMART objectives outlined, and we'll talk more about these SMART objectives and what that stands for. And then in the readiness arena, there has to be a financial readiness aspect to it as well. A strong financial strategy with appropriate tracking measures in place. Maybe you are new, you don't have. So for you, it will be, these will be projections, right? Have a strategic plan, a financial strategic plan, have a projected budget, you don't necessarily have to say, well, I don't have 3 years worth, I don't have 2 years worth, but project what are you going, what does your next 2 year look like? What does your next 2 years look like? What does your next 3 years look like? And then have your most recent overall organization budget and individual program budget. A lot of people don't refer to their budget if they have one at all, but it is very important that you have it. It's your part of your roadmap. You need to have an overall organization budget. And then have an accurate list of your past, your current, and or any pending funding that you have been promised. What have you been given before? This is something that happens in the grant world. Money follows money. Money goes where other money is. So if you don't, if you are new, I encourage you. There are some people who see grants, like I have a group that I post grants every week. You see a grant and you're like, it's just $1,000. I'm looking for 100,000. And then you ignore those $500 grants, those $1,000 grants. But if you're just starting, you're a new entity, you've never received any grants, I encourage you to go for those $500 grants, for those $200 grants, for those $1,000 grants, because at the end of the day, when it comes to you showing that we have been given a grant before, they couldn't care less or how big the grant was or how small the grant was. They just want to know, have you been given a set of money by somebody and how have you utilized it effectively? You have a history. So build that history even with that $500. And then sometimes you have applied for a grant and they have promised that it's coming, they have approved you, but the money is not come in yet. So you can use those letters or those communications to show that you have pending funding that is coming up. Or maybe it's a local donor who have said, when I get my taxes, I'm going to give you $100. If possible, have that in writing. It will help you in being financially ready as you apply for your grant. Ensure that you have adequate internal support when it comes to reporting. One department is not going to cut it on its own. You need your whole team to be involved in what you are doing. So make sure that within your organization internally, there is adequate support. And here in the US, if you have the most recent tax returns, they are always very helpful to submit those as part of your showing that you showing your financial where you stand financially or where you have stood financially. Then the next R is research. Research is something you can't forgo. You're going to need research. You are going to research for your funder, who they are. You are going to research your project, what your project is about, what it is that you want to do, and that is going to include your audience as well. You are going to do a lot of research. Then you're going to look at other similar projects to gain insight from. All that is part of your research. This is the Guide Star is one that you can look at here in the US. The IRS is another one where you can look at other entities that have provided that are providing similar project like what you're trying to provide. And you are going to need to research demographic information on your audience. Data always helps to create a strong grant proposal. It's practically impossible to win a grant without one doing research and two providing data. It's practically impossible. Evidence-based data is what most funders are looking for. You also want to ask, is your project being done elsewhere? And if it has been done elsewhere, what is it? Why is yours different? How are you uniquely qualified to do this proposed project? What makes you stand out? And also, research is good because it's going to help you to avoid what's called double dipping and or duplicating services or duplicating another organization. I'm going to stop here for a quick minute and find out if anyone has any questions, and then I'll get into the next slide. Okay. The next is relationships. Grant writing, the nonprofit world is about relationships. Previous relationships with funder, if it's their community collaborators, evaluation and reporting strategies. I mean, the relationships, everything you do is about relationship. Do you have strong partnership letters to go along along with your applications? Those things go a long way. You want to highlight in your applications in some form, you want to highlight your organization's capacity using relevant staff, their qualifications, their experience, their talents, and then also use your budget to demonstrate how you leverage the funds against other resources. Relationship, and networking is very big in this nonprofit world. So, in the writing, when you're writing your grant, you want to leverage effective storytelling. You are telling a story. You are selling your organization. So you are eliciting certain emotions when someone is reading, especially when they first open and they look at that executive summary. You want some kind of emotion to come out of them reading this. So you are walking the reviewer of your grant through a journey of your organization, what it's about, what it's offering. You are you are telling a story. So be an effective storyteller and back it up with data and admit your weaknesses, and also have a plan of how do you circumvent those weaknesses. Okay. And then when you're writing, a lot of people, they write their grants last minute, and therefore they are running out of time, and then they don't have time to proofread your work. Check your mathematical calculations, check your grammar, check your spelling, align your narratives. Your budget needs to meet what the narrative is. Your budget needs to meet what you are saying in your executive summary. Your narrative needs to meet what you are saying in your needs assessment. Things need to match. Seek second opinions. You know, when you're reading something, when you have written something, you've been working on it for a long time, do you know, you start seeing mistakes don't always pop up. Because you already know what you're supposed to read like in your mind. And so those words you are reading, they start seeming correct when they are really not. So if someone else who has nothing to do with your grant, but just ask them to read through it and check for all these things. And please don't embellish. Reviewers can see through it. Don't oversell yourself. If you're not doing it, you're not doing it. Don't say we are doing it when you're not. Then the next R is on reporting. Reporting is an opportunity to showcase what you did and how you used the funds that had been given to you. There are two types of reporting. There's progressive reporting, and then there's the final report. Here's some elements that you generally find in a report. The grant summary. What is the grant about? What are some of the milestones that you have you've overcome? What are some of the milestones that you have done? And also, what are the financial statements? What does your finances look like so far? What were the project activities that you did during this period? Pardon me. What are the results and what is the impact in your community? What are some of the lessons that you have learned, right? And what is the future plans of this particular project? Is it ending now, or what are you carrying on even when the grant is finished? What is the sustainability plan? And then any other additional information that you may feel may be useful to your funder, you can add it on at this junction. What are the reporting steps? Again, always follow your instructions of your funder. But here are some steps that are universal. Understand the reporting requirements, as I said. Track data throughout the project. Don't look for the data when the report is ready. Just be tracking it throughout, and you make it life easier for you at the end. And follow the report guidelines. I don't know how much I can stress on this. Follow the report guidelines, and then be honest. in your reporting, just be honest. Meet deadlines. Not meeting deadlines can be a barrier to you getting refunded, for you qualifying for any other further funding that the organization might want to give for expansion. How do you apply for a grant? There are three things you need to prepare. There are some common grant elements and some best practices. I'm going to whiz through these. Here are some of the common grant elements in the nonprofit world. You have your cover sheets and table of contents. All these instructions are always in the grant application, in the grant announcement. The executive summary is usually a page, and this is just average, okay? Don't go out there and say, oh, Pastor T said it has to be a page, or it has to be 2 pages or whatever. This is general. This is in general. A statement of need, which is usually 2 pages, and then your project description, which is usually 3 pages. Your budget usually is a page, and sometimes they actually give you a template for that budget. And your organization information is also, who are you? Who is involved in your organization? That's usually 1 page. And your sustainability plan is also usually 1 page. And then you have your appendices and your supporting materials. There is no limitation to that. Some people will give you a limitation. So follow this, always follow the guidelines of the funder. So like I said, page numbers are just examples. Always go with what the instructions are saying. So there are 2 types of budgets. There's the organization budget versus the project budget. The organization budget is the overall budget, and then the project budget is a subset of the organization budget. So always make sure that you understand that distinction, because it will help you when you are creating the budget, the 2 different budgets. Some organizations, some entities that are funding you might ask you for both budgets, your organization budget and your project budget. Some may not be interested in the organization budget, but you always have to provide the project budget. So I'm going to skip over the small business stuff because, well, we are talking nonprofit here. Okay, and then what comes onto the cover sheet? The funder almost always provides you the cover sheet. So use what they have given you. If the cover letter is requested, the cover sheet goes between the cover letter and the actual proposal. The cover letter is the first impression, so take your time in drafting this letter. It is usually 1 to 3 paragraphs. What are you proposing is what you are addressing in this cover letter, or you are also covering the dollar amount that you are requesting and why you believe you are a good fit for the funds that they are offering. The executive summary, what exactly is in the executive summary? The executive summary is also an abstract, like a project summary, right? It is usually the initial introduction to the organization or business. It is high-level condensed synopsis of your business plan, what you are offering, what you are doing, and what you're going to do with the funds. It represents the spirit of the project. So, in other words, it sets the tone. It explains the needs to be addressed, the organizational structure, and highlights leadership, financial needs, anticipated positive impacts. It is also your mission statement. It is a sales pitch and inspirational message all in one. What are the components of an executive summary? It is the description of your product or service. It is the project objectives. It is the summary of the marketplace or community that you're planning to serve. It is the qualification of your leadership. It is the expected growth or the expected impact. And it also talks about how much it is the funding needs. How much are you, the actual dollar amount? What is it? How much do you need to be given? Some tips to consider when you're putting together an executive summary. It's supposed to be an attention grabber. Sometimes reviewers may not go beyond this executive summary. If it doesn't draw them, you may actually miss an opportunity. I'm looking at my time and I have 2 minutes. So I am going to, perhaps, if that is okay, I can come back next week, because what is left is not, I'm not able to finish it in the time that I have. If that is okay, I can return next week for part 2.
We could do that, offer it to people to come back for part 2. That would be fine next week. Same day, same time, for anybody who wants to come back.
Okay, sounds good. So some tips just to finish up the executive summary. It's, like I said, it's an attention grabber. Do all you can, put your best foot forward. It can stand alone without, the way you write this summary, it should be a document that can stand alone without the rest of the proposal. In other words, tell me your what, your who, your when, your why, your how, right? Right there. And follow the funders' guidance. Be positive. Make sure that last sentence or that last paragraph you write is what I call a parting shot. Leave the biggest impression. This is a deal breaker. Your executive summary is a deal breaker. What are the questions that the executive summary should answer? What is your mission? What is your mission? Why is your mission important? What need does it fill, or what problem does it solve? What is the final goal or accomplishment you will achieve? Why are you best suited to provide this service? And how much will it cost? I end here.
Great. Thank you very much. If you could turn up your screen sharing, that would be super.
Yes.
Pastor T. I don't know if anybody has any questions today for what you've gone over so far. I know I do, if nobody else does, but let's see if anybody else has any questions. You can either talk, you can just talk, or raise your hand, either one, whichever you like to do. Let me ask you a question. I was thinking about, can more than one organization collaborate together to do a grant? I'm thinking some organizations may have some strength in one area.
Sorry, your Ken,
yeah,
your volume is so low, I can hardly hear you.
Really?
Oh, now I can. Yeah,
okay.
I can.
So my question is, can more than one organization collaborate on a grant? You know, one may have one strength in one area and one may have another strength in an area, 2 or 3 organizations collaborating on one grant.
It's rare. It's rare, but it can. So how you may find whether the funder will allow you to do that is some funders, before they share their application, before they share their funding opportunity, they will have an informational session where you can ask questions. And some will also give you a contact person if you have any questions during the grant writing process, where you can reach out and say, this is what we are thinking, can this provide, can this do it? And some funders will say within their instruction, they'll say, this funder allows you to collaborate with other organizations. But you can be the key person. You can be, as an entity, as an organization, be the key applicants, but then show collaborations with others. Hence, that's where that partnership comes in. So you can show that even though for us, we provide this part, we have this letter that is showing you that we are going to be in partnership with this organization, and this is who this organization is.
Okay. Dr. Sylvia from Kenya has her hand up.
Thanks, Ken, and it's okay to still say Nigeria. I'm married there, so I'm both Kenya, Nigeria. So you are not so wrong.
Okay.
My question, just from experience, I find it a bit difficult to put all this information in one, especially when you're dealing with not so common issues, especially like in the neurodiverse community. There are things that look basic for everyone else, but then for this specific community that we serve, it is a bit delicate. And I've seen many organizations asking, oh, that's question one, like, how do you make it as simple as possible? Do you add your further details in your annexes, or do you try and spread it out across the grants? That's one, because sometimes it's multifaceted. And then two, what do you advise when you're asked for video to accompany your grant application in most cases? Like, what should the video generally entail? Must it be professionally shot, or is it something that you can just speak through what it is that you want? Like, what are the contents of that video support that they always ask for? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Some really great questions. Thank you, Sylvia. Now, your first question is, how do you show what you are doing if it's not the usual, right? If it's not the common, and you're only, sometimes organizations, funders are only saying we want 250 characters, but your unique situation may actually require you to 500, right? 500 characters. So what I always say to people is use bullet form. That's sometimes very effective. And also you can introduce it in every aspect, everywhere you are writing. So on every element. So in your executive summary, introduce it. And then on the next one, when you're writing your narrative, introduce that aspect that you believe is not common. And then in your narrative, in your needs assessment, in every element, make sure that you are mentioning it one way or the other without repeating it, but it's a gradual education. You are educating the person that is reading it. And then, and in your annex is absolutely, if you have a program description, slot it in there and refer to it when during your other parts of the elements. And then as far as the grant, the video is concerned, most of them are going to give you instruction on what it is that they want. And don't make it too long. Usually most grants will say no more than 2 minutes. So they may be saying they want you to, what you want to showcase. If they've not given you proper instruction and they've just said, can you give us a video of what you do? You may want to show a video of a recipient talking about the benefits of this project, or you interviewing that recipient, or perhaps I find it more powerful when it's the recipient that is talking about it versus the founder or the executive director talking about an issue. If you have examples of someone else, of the person that has received the service, or the potential client who can talk about why this thing is useful, that is more powerful than me coming in and saying, yes, I'm Teresa Dango, I started a nonprofit to help immigrants to do this. But if I bring an immigrant who says how much this of a resource is, then that story is a better sell than me just talking out of general knowledge. This person is talking about what they are actually doing, or what it actually impacts them personally. I hope I've answered your question. And if not, ask me and I will elaborate.
Thank you very much. That is highly appreciated.